Hi everybody, it's Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path, and this morning it's time for another early morning book review. Before we get going on that, let's get the business part out of the way. Thank you so much for your comments. I love your comments every time. Yay, comments! I love answering them back. I love getting to know you guys. I feel like we have a little community going on here, and I love it. And give me a like, hit subscribe, and we'll have more fun over the summer. More fun watching these videos than you can imagine, which is probably not that much, but hey, we'll still have fun. Okay, so this morning I'm going to be reviewing a nonfiction book. Now I know you guys are like, what? Not a vintage book, but it's kind of a vintage book. I got this from, of course, Half Price Books, who, if you're listening, still would love to have you sponsor me. Sorry, I'm spitting. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, this book was from my recent book haul, and it's The Cases That Haunt Us by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. And I didn't read the whole book, I'm not going to lie. The whole book had Lizzie Borden, Jack the Ripper, the Lindbergh kidnapping, the Zodiac murder, and John Benet Ramsey. And I only read the ones that were of interest to me. And those were Jack the Ripper, Lizzie Borden, and John Benet Ramsey. I didn't read the Zodiac because, frankly, it scares me too much. And because it's nonsensical to me. I mean, not that murder is ever sensible or sensical or logical or anything like that, but certainly John Benet's wasn't. But I just, the Zodiac is just so far out there that just scared me to death. And then the Lindbergh kidnapping was such a sad, heart-wrenching, breaking story. I have read about that before, and it was once is enough. I don't need to read about it again. But let me go over this book, and let me tell you why this was an excellent book. So the reason it was an excellent book is that he goes through all the facts of the cases, like the facts only. Just this is what we know. And then, as a former profiler, he goes through what the profile of the killer would be like. And then he goes back to the facts and he takes that profile and he tries to fit in who would it be and what would happen and everything like that. And there was a suspect. Now, he starts off saying, we're never going to know who Jack the Ripper is. We're just not going to know that. That's just something that, you can read all these books about it. Somebody's uncovered it and everything. And he's like, we're just not going to know where it is. It's too old. The evidence is not there, and it's too ancient a situation, a series of murders. We're just not going to know. But he goes through and he talks about disorganized killers and organized killers and things that are done out of passion and things that are done, that are planned and everything like that. And he actually names a suspect in the Jack the Ripper murder case out of the list of suspects that the police had that he thinks did it, which I thought was fascinating. I love that one. And then we go on to Lizzie Borden, and he pretty much talks about Lizzie Borden was the first. Let me sidetrack for a second. Lizzie Borden was the first true crime that I ever got interested in because I watched a PBS special with my dad. This is when I was little kid, about Lizzie Borden and about Falls Church and about the trial and everything like that. And my father described to me, I said, well, at that time, PBS had on there some sort of situation where somebody was seen coming into the house, like a man was seen coming into the house with a carriage, but they never could prove that and everything. And Dad was like, no, it was Lizzie Borden because she had exclusive opportunity. She was literally the only one who could have done it. But there's always been the question of why was there no blood on her clothes and all this kind of stuff. And so he goes back to the Lizzie Borden case, and he basically proves my father right, that she was the only one really who could have done it. And they did find a whole basket full of blood-soaked rags that she claimed that were being used or had been used for her period. And, you know, they didn't want to question that at that time. That was just something that they didn't want to question and everything like that. But if I had a basket full of blood-soaked rags and everything like that, I would be seeing a doctor, because, wow, that's a lot. But since men were so uninformed about female bodies at the time, they were just like, oh, we're not going to talk about menstruation. We're not going to talk about the probability that those could have been used during the murder. No, 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 no. So then he talks about how Lizzie was pretty much the only one who could have done it, which I thought was interesting. Now, John Benet Ramsey has been one of the most fascinating cases I have ever been interested in. And I've always been interested in true crime a little bit, but, you know, not to the point where I'm watching murder shows all the time. And like, I love Only Murders in the Building because it's silly and it's funny, but I also think it's well written and everything like that. But, you know, just people randomly killing each other over crack cocaine and stuff like that, not for me, not for me. And, you know, the really vicious serial killers who think that they're associated with Satan, you know, the Night Stalker, Ramirez, and everything like that. I did enjoy Anne Rule's Ted Bundy book. I thought that was fascinating, but that also, one of the reasons that I liked that was because it really gave a reflection of the time, the times that people were living in, the innocence that people were living in at that time, where they hadn't come up with stranger danger yet, and they didn't have anybody. Ted Bundy was not that cunning. He was not that brilliant or anything like that. He just took advantage of women at that time in our country's history, when women are sort of trying to be independent, but at the same time it's being drilled into them. They need to be helpful, they need to be caregivers, they need to be all this kind of stuff, instead of just saying go away, which a lot of them, you know, did. A lot of them did say go away and escaped him. But anyway, I digress. John Benet Ramsey, fascinating case. If you're not familiar with the John Benet Ramsey case, I don't know where you've been, but you need to read up on it. And basically, he goes through it, and he is very sure that it is not the Ramseys, which I am also very sure that it is not the Ramseys, because it's just too, what's the word I'm looking for? The elaborate scheme of the whole kidnapping and the whole, you know, dressing her up and putting her down in the basement and then having John find her and then all this kind of stuff. I mean, it would just be too elaborate for a family to come up with. Instead of just saying Burke, who is the son, hit her with the flashlight, or mom slammed her against the wall, or something like that. Like, they could have very easily, they were wealthy and they were well thought of in the society that they lived in Boulder and everything like that. There were other ways they could have addressed this, instead of making up this huge conspiracy theory that they all three had to be in on and everything like that. And it boggles the mind, all the possibilities there. So he thinks it was done by a young person, by a teenager even, who got into the house while they were at the Christmas party and waited in the house. And then he does believe the taser theory. Now, let me just tell you what the taser theory is. When they were doing the autopsy on John Benet, they found these two little red marks. I forgot where they found them, but I think one was on the neck and then one was on another part of the body, maybe the hip or something like that. And it looked like they were marks made from a taser, which would make sense because the taser wouldn't make a lot of noise. She might yelp, a little bit, but she would be asleep, and then that would knock her out, and that would allow the perpetrator to take her down to the basement and to do whatever horrible thing he did. And then he could have, you know, killed her down there and then escaped through the broken window. And he just lays it out that it's like, that is the most logical option. Now, the ransom note, and if you guys follow the JonBenet case, I really want to hear from you guys, because I want to hear what you think about the ransom note. Because the ransom note, this long, rambling ransom note, and it had all these movie references in it like that. The one person they never could clear from writing the ransom note was Patsy Ramsey. She came the closest, but they couldn't definitively prove that it was her handwriting. But she came the closest, and it was written on a pad at their house, and you could see that it was started over. There was some indentations on another page that looked like the ransom note was started over. But he is very clear that, I mean, the perpetrator probably did that while he was waiting for the Ramseys to come back from wherever they were. They were at the Christmas party, from the Christmas party, and then waited in the house or anything like that, because it wouldn't make any sense for him to wait in the house after he did the murder. He could have written that ransom note before, killed the child, either intentionally or unintentionally killed the child, and then left the ransom note and crawled out the window. And he just says that that is the most logical happenings. That's the most logical conclusion that he could come up with for the JonBenet Ramsey case. All in all, it was a fantastic read. It really was good. I love the old cases. I love the way he handled it with, you know, laying out all the facts and putting it all in front of us and everything like that. I just thought it was great. And, you know, if you like true crime, if you want to go back through these older cases and really get a good grasp of the facts, and not what people are putting in and supposing and everything like that, but the actual facts of what happened. This is what we know. And then from that, from what we know, what's the most logical conclusion? I loved it. I thought it was great. I gave it a 4 stars. Yay! Got a 4 stars on Goodreads. So, anyway, I'm still plodding through episode 13, which is a little boring, but I want to find out what happens. So I'm going through it and everything. And so I don't know how long it'll be before I chat with you guys again, but I'm having a great time. I hope you're having a great time. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave me comments. I want to hear comments, because I'm getting back to my vintage stuff. I think we're going to do North River's Secret will be our next one after episode 13. So get excited for that. We're going to go back deep into the vintage woods. All right, well, I love you, and thanks so much for supporting the channel, and I will check you later.